Life Audio.
The Bible Study Podcast, episode 898. Today, the Bible Study Podcast continues the study of the intertestamental period and the book of 1 Maccabees with chapter 9. Welcome to the Bible Study Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. We're going to start chapter 9 today. We are going to finish the reign of Judas. But first, a word from this sponsor. So we start here in Maccabees returns to Judea. When Demetrius heard that Nicanor and his army had fallen in battle, he sent Maccabees and Alcimus into the land of Judah a second time, and with them the right wing of the army. They went by the road that leads to Gilgal and encamped against Mesaleth in Arbela. And they took it and killed many people. In the first month of the 152nd year, they encamped against Jerusalem. Then they marched off and went to Berea with 20,000 foot soldiers and 2,000 cavalry. Now Judas was encamped in Elasa, and with him were 3,000 picked men. When they saw the huge number of the enemy forces, they were greatly frightened, and many slipped away from the camp until no more than 800 of them were left. When Judas saw that his army had slipped away and the battle was imminent, he was crushed in spirit, for he had no time to assemble them. He became faint, but he said to those who were left, "Let us get up and go against our enemies. We may have the strength to fight them." But they tried to dissuade him, saying, "We do not have the strength. Let us rather save our own lives now. And let us come back with our kindred and fight them, for we are too few." But Judas said, "Far be it from me to do such a thing as to flee from them. If our time has come, let us die bravely for our kindred and leave no cause to question our honor." This is one of those today is a good day to die moments here. But Judas has an army. He starts with 3,000 men, but it is way, way outnumbered to begin with by the forces that the Syrian king sends against him. And it only gets more so when basically 2/3 of his army disappears in the night, when they basically leave and flee in front of this incoming invasion force. And so Judas decides that he's going to fight. It doesn't sound like he is confident of victory, but just wants to make sure that people are clear that he is a man of honor. And so he will fight. This will be his last battle, the last battle of Judas. Then the army of Maccabees marched out from the camp and took its stand for the encounter. The cavalry was divided into 2 companies, and the slingers and archers went ahead of the army, as did all the chief warriors. Maccabees was on the right wing, flanked by the 2 companies. The phalanx advanced to the sound of the trumpets, and the men with Judas also blew their trumpets. The earth was shaken by the noise of the armies, and the battle raged from morning until evening. Judas saw that Maccabees and the strength of his army were on the right. Then all the courageous men went with him, and they crushed the right wing, and he pursued them as far as Mount Azotus. When those on the left saw that the right wing was crushed, they turned and followed close behind Judas and his men. The battle became desperate, and many on both sides were wounded and fell. Then Judas also fell, and the rest fled. Then Jonathan and Simon took their brother Judas and buried him in the tomb of their ancestors at Modain and wept for him. All Israel made great lamentation for him. They mourned many days and said, "How is the mighty fallen, the Savior of Israel?" Now the rest of the acts of Judas and his wars and the brave deeds that he did and his greatness have not been recorded, because they were very many. So Judas fights, and he has some success. He's able to defeat the right wing of the army. But what often happens at that point is that the left wing also collapses, but they do not. They follow after Judas, and in the terrible fighting that happens, Judas is finally killed. Now, for those of you keeping score, when we started this book in chapter 2, we got to Mattathias and his sons. And his sons were John, Simon, Judas, Eleazar, Jonathan. And now we've gotten through where Mattathias is dead, John is dead, and now Judas is dead. And we have Simon and Jonathan, who are now leading the people. And Eleazar, I don't think we have had any mention of him after this. I'm not sure what happened to Eleazar, but maybe we will encounter him in the future. So we are almost halfway through the Maccabees in terms of this story will follow Mattathias and his sons. And when we are done with them, we will be done with this book. So we're roughly halfway here. We're also getting very close to episode 900, but that will not be the end of this. But we get the end here of Judas. This was his last battle. And we're going to carry on here into Jonathan. Jonathan succeeds Judas. After the death of Judas, the renegades emerged in all parts of Israel. All the wrongdoers reappeared. In those days, a very great famine occurred, and the country went over to their side. Bacchides chose the godless and put them in charge of the country. They made inquiry and searched for the friends of Judas and brought them to Bacchides, who took vengeance on them and made sport of them. So there was great distress in Israel, such as had not been seen since the time a prophet had last appeared among them. Then all the friends of Judas assembled and said to Jonathan, "Since the death of your brother, Judas, there has been no one like him to go against our enemies and Bacchides and to deal with those of our nation who hate us. Now, therefore, we have chosen you today to take his place as our ruler and leader to fight our battle." So Jonathan accepted the leadership at the time in the place of his brother Judas. Now, again, he's taking the place of Judas, who took the place of John, who took the place of their father. And so he is the fourth in this family to take over and lead the people of Israel, or the people of Judah. And we get the campaigns of Jonathan. When Bacchides learned of this, he tried to kill him, but Jonathan and his brother Simon and all who were with him heard of it, and they fled into the wilderness of Tekoa and camped by the water of the pool of Ashvar. Bacchides found this out on the Sabbath day, and he, with all his army, crossed the Jordan. So Jonathan sent his brother as leader of the multitude and begged the Nabateans, who were his friends, for permission to store with them the great amount of baggage they had. But the family of Jambri from Medeba came out and seized John and all that he had and left with it. After these things, it was reported to Jonathan and his brother Simon, "The family of Jambri are celebrating a great wedding and are conducting the bride, a daughter of one of the great nobles of Canaan, from Nadabath with a large escort." Remembering how their brother John had been killed, they went up and hid under the cover of the mountain. They looked out and saw a tumultuous procession with a great amount of baggage, and the bridegroom came out with his friends and his brothers to meet them with tambourines and musicians and many weapons. Then they rushed on them from the ambush and began killing them. Many were wounded and fell, and the rest fled to the mountain, and the troops took all their goods. So the wedding turned into mourning, and the voice of their musicians into a funeral dirge. After they had fully avenged the blood of their brother, they returned to the marshes of the Jordan. When Bacchides heard of this, he came with a large force on the Sabbath day to the banks of the Jordan, and Jonathan said to those with him, "Let us go up now and fight for our lives, for today things are not as they were before. For look, the battle is in front of us and behind us. The water of the Jordan is on this side, and on that, with the marsh and the thicket, there is no place to turn. Cry out now to heaven that you may be delivered from the hands of our enemies." So the battle began, and Jonathan stretched out his hand to strike Bacchides, but he eluded him and went to the rear. Then Jonathan and the men with him leapt into the Jordan and swam across to the other side, and Bacchides' troops did not cross the Jordan to attack them, and about 1,000 of Bacchides' men fell that day. So we get this kind of side story here that Jonathan has taken over, and they're going to go store their luggage so they don't have to worry about what's going to happen to it, their baggage train, as it were, with the Nabateans. The Nabateans would be the people who built the city of Petra that you can still go to today, that city that built because of trade over the deserts there in the Holy Lands in the Middle East. And on the way, it's stolen. John is apparently killed. There's too many Johns in this story. This is the third John that we've got so far, and it isn't the last one. There's going to be another one coming. We're going to have 4 Johns in the book. And he's stolen, and they take avenge for him and get all their baggage back by basically turning this wedding of the people who had captured all of their baggage, who had apparently killed John. They go and they turn that wedding into a dirge. They turn that wedding into a massacre, into an ambush, and get back everything that had been stolen from them, and probably some other things as well. So, and then we get this battle here at the Jordan. And for those of you who've been to the Jordan, Jordan is not a huge river, but it certainly is not great to be trying to cross a river in your armor and when you're trying to fight a battle. And so they're fighting this battle. They have marshes on one side, the enemy on the other, the Jordan River. They fight. They kill 1,000 of Bacchides' men, and then apparently they flee. They're able to leap into the Jordan, swim across to the other side, and end the day in one piece, even though it looked like they might be destroyed. And I'm going to keep going here because we're actually going to end this war here if I just keep going for a few more verses. Then Bacchides returned to Jerusalem and built strong cities in Judea, the fortress in Jericho and Emmaus and Beth Horon and Bethel and Timnath and Pherathon and Tephon, with high walls and gates and bars. And he placed garrisons in them to harass Israel. He also fortified the town of Beth Zur and Gazara and the citadel, and in them put troops and stores of food. And he took the sons of the leading men of the land as hostages and put them under guard in the citadel at Jerusalem. In the 153rd year, in the second month, Alcimus gave orders to tear down the wall of the inner court of the sanctuary. He tore down the work of the prophets. But he only began to tear it down, for at the time Alcimus was stricken, and his work was hindered, his mouth was stopped, and he was paralyzed, so that he could no longer say a word or give commands concerning his house. And Alcimus died at the time in great agony. When Bacchides saw that Alcimus was dead, he returned to the king, and the land of Judah had rest for 2 years. So Bacchides has been successful here. He has driven off Jonathan, although did not kill him. And he starts building fortifications to hold the country, to basically be able to preserve order by having troops in various places, including in that citadel, which was still that fortress right in the middle of Jerusalem, just south of the Temple Mount in the city of David, where he could control the temple. And so he is in charge. He's got these troops everywhere. They've got stores of food. They're ready for trouble. But they go a little too far. Alcimus, who was also sent by the king, decides to tear down the inner wall of the courtyard. So he decides to do construction. And this isn't just remodeling. He is probably going back to the original problem we had in Maccabees of we're going to tear down the temple and turn it into a pagan temple. It doesn't say that's what he's doing, but I think we can assume that that's what's going on. And we could say that God stops him because at first his mouth is stopped, and then he's paralyzed, and then he dies in great agony. And so it would appear that he has been smote, as it were. He has been smited, that God has stopped him. And so Bacchides sees this, and he goes back to the king of Syria. And he is out of the land, and there's peace. Now, there's not peace because they've gone away, but peace because there's no fighting here for 2 years. And then finally, we're going to end the war here, at the end of the war. Then all the lawless plotted and said, "See, Jonathan and his men are living in quiet and confidence. So now let us bring Bacchides back, and he will capture them all in one night." And they went and consulted with him. He started to come with a large force and secretly sent letters to all his allies in Judea, telling them to seize Jonathan and his men. But they were unable to do it because their plan became known. And Jonathan's men seized about 50 of the men of the country who were leaders in this treachery and killed them. Then Jonathan with his men and Simon withdrew to Bethbasi in the wilderness. He rebuilt parts of it that had been demolished, and they fortified it. When Bacchides heard of this, he assembled all of his forces and sent orders to the men of Judea. Then he came and encamped against Bethbasi. He fought against it for many days and made engines of war. But Jonathan left his brother Simon in the town while he went out into the country, and he went with only a few men. He struck down Odomera and his kindred and the people of Phasiron and their tents. Then he began to attack and went into battle with his forces Then Simon and his men sallied out from the town and set fire to the engines of war. They fought with Bacchides, and he was crushed by them. They pressed him very hard, for his plan and his expedition had been in vain. So he was very angry at the renegades who had counseled him to come into the country, and he killed many of them. Then he decided to go back to his own land. When Jonathan learned of this, he sent ambassadors to him to make peace with him and obtain release of the captives. He agreed and did as he said, and he swore to Jonathan that he would not try to harm him as long as he lived. He restored to them the captives whom he had taken previously from the land of Judah, that he turned and went back to his own land, and did not come again into their territory. Thus the sword ceased from Israel. Jonathan settled in Michmash and began to judge the people, and he destroyed the godless out of Israel. So we're going to pause here in terms of the story. That's a little longer than I was planning on going, but I just wanted to get to this place here where we actually finally have peace. So we have 2 years of peace, and then the people say, hey, look, Jonathan seems like he's pretty content here. He's not expecting anything. You should come and attack him now, and you can wipe him out. It does not work. They find out. They are prepared. And they fight this big battle out here at Beth-Basi in the wilderness. So it's a fortress of some sort. They have to make engines of war. So engines of war, these would be siege towers and things to throw, ballistas and those sort of things that would throw things at the walls and try and break them down. And Jonathan goes out and he is attacking one set of people. And Simon sorties out from this fortress, sallies out from the town, and they destroy all these engines of war. And Bacchides is just furious with the people who brought him here, saying, you told me that this Jonathan, this was going to be easy. We could capture this Jonathan. We could kill him. It didn't work out the way. I am going home. And so Jonathan sends him letters, and they finally agree to peace here, where we're going to send back the hostages. I am never coming there again with an army. And so we finally have the people of Judah are in control of Judah, at least for now. We're going to end it there. If you have any questions, send an email to chris2x@gmail.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at thebiblestudypodcast.com. And thanks so much for listening. I want to take just a second to thank the team at Life Audio for their partnership with us on this podcast. If you go to lifeaudio.com, you'll find dozens of other faith-centered podcasts in their network. They've got shows about prayer, Bible study, parenting, and more.
It's a crazy world out there, moms and dads. I'm Catherine Seegers, host of Christian Parent Crazy World, the podcast that tackles tough topics to help you be a godly parent in an ungodly world. Subscribe at lifeaudio.com.